This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Diary of a Country Priest from 1951, directed by Robert Bresson, and we're joined by friend of the show, Justin Peterson. Thanks, Justin,
Hey there.
joining us. A synopsis, no tagline this week for this Bresson minimalist transcendental film. An inexperienced, sickly priest shows up in the rural French community of Ambrecourt, where he joins the community's clergy. But the locals don't take kindly to the priest, and his ascetic ways and unsociable demeanor make him an outcast. During Bible studies at the nearby girls' school, he is continually mocked by his students. Then his attempt to intervene in a family feud backfires into a scandal. His failures, compounded with his declining health, begin to erode his faith. So, this is a movie I've seen once before, and it's not that long ago. I had kind of been turned on to this Robert Bresson director from his movies Alcazar, Balthazar, The Devil Always, and I really, really enjoyed I guess his later work, A Man Escapes and stuff like that. I loved the subtlety of his filmmaking, the poeticness, this like low key emphasis on hands is a thing that pops up a lot, particularly with Pickpocket, which we'll be watching someday soon. And I remember I at the time I had to track down a copy of this Diary of a Country Priest because it sounded like it checked a lot of boxes. It's one of Paul Schrader's favorite movies. And I was like, yeah, but it was out of print because that gosh darn Studio Canal, they took all those movies with them way like years ago now. So this is out of print and currently is not even on the Criterion channel. So it's a pain in the butt to watch this, but fortunately I guess I had bought this a while back, and that came to the rescue for RJ's sake as well. But so yeah, the first time I watched this movie though, I don't know if I felt super crazy about it. It was it was okay. It's a perfectly fine movie. It was my initial kind of memory of it now, but it's as I've talked about before in the past on this podcast, this Winter Light, a little movie called First Reformed, which is essentially a mashup of Diary of a Country Priest and Winter Light. There's something about the subject matter that just does not speak to me very much as an avowed atheist.
I was gonna say I think I understand why, but continue.
Right. No, and I've gone back. I went through because I was like, you know what though, it's not like I dislike the subject matter inherently. I actually really like the movie Silence, Scorsese's movie. So I mean, there's examples of these priestly movies. I mean, I'll watch The Exorcist, right? That counts.
Sure. Yeah. What about Jesus of Nazareth? Do you like that movie? That Frank Zeffirelli one?
I haven't seen it. I guess I'll have to wait till Easter.
Well, we're all waiting to hear.
The Preacher's Wife.
So
there you go.
So I watched it once, and this obviously have to watch it again, and I wasn't really looking forward to it. And the movie starts, and it seems almost like new. Like I remember certain things. I remember the lead actor's face. I kind of remember beats and parts of it. And I'm like, okay, this is like I'm on board with this a little bit more for the first half hour or so. But then I don't know. Something just happens with this movie where I just my interest wanes, and I'm like, the Tale of the Priest. And it's like this ridiculousness of like kind of bad people, and like no matter what he does, he's trying to do the right thing. I don't know. But actually the thing that probably bugs me the most with this though is the use of the voiceover narration in the movie, and the use of I find that it's really like it's not necessary. And it's obvious. I mean, it's called Diary of a Country Priest, and so hey, this priest is reading from his diary, or we're hearing excerpts of it as he's working in it, his own observations. But there's times where I don't know if it seems redundant, and there's still like the music that I think Bresson really starts cutting out as he really starts becoming the minimalist and cutting out even like any sort of like cinematic flourishes, and it just becomes what's on the screen, performance, and he uses the non-professional actor starting here. But like, there's just times where I was just like, man, this would be so much better if there was no voiceover. Which is just like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the problems here are like things that are like very particular for me, because on the whole, when I look up what people think of this movie, they love this movie. They are in love with it. And I'm kind of like, huh, is there something wrong with me? And I don't rule this out. But yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, the plot of the movie, I don't know. I guess I could throw to either of you guys now. Have either of you seen this movie before this week?
Nope. What about you, Justin?
This was a first-time watch. Ever since I had heard that First Reform was inspired by this, it was always kind of on my radar. And the first time I came on the show, we were kind of fanboying out to Fear and Loathing. So I definitely, my next experience, I wanted it to be a first-time watch that was more challenging. And this certainly lived up to that because, yeah. So,
Okay.
I wish you guys had told me that this was a First Reformed remake, because I would have... actually, Jarrett probably mentioned it a while ago, but I probably would have watched that movie.
You're real down on that First Reform, aren't you?
I am. I don't know. I find the message of the movie, like we were kind of talking about this earlier, is so like... you can't miss it. It's like it's so obvious, and I'm kind of like, huh? Like it just distracted me, and I felt like the movie just didn't work for me at all.
Okay.
But which like,
so were you
like,
kind of looking for? You think more subtlety would have kind of a little more nuance? Is that what you were kind of looking for out of this? Like his later work?
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, with with this, I feel like it's very straightforward. Like I don't think it's like it's not even the nuance in Diary of a Country Priest that's lacking. I feel like it's a pretty minimal thing, but I feel like the filmmaker that Bresson becomes later, he's still not there, because like we have watched one Bresson movie since then, with the very French title, not the English translation, Dame de le Bouillon, however it is.
Dame de Bouillon?
There we go. So that was like kind of like just a fine movie, and like it doesn't feel at all like a Bresson. Like it's like definitely a guy who is making movies the way that movies are being made, and he's just learning the craft. This is a transition point where he's still not where I want him to be, I guess. Is that fair? I don't know. Sure.
But I had seen two Bresson films before this. I had seen Balthazar, which I thought was pretty good, pretty grim, kind of a donkey being this metaphor for Christ. And then I was not impressed at all with Pickpocket. I mean, there was a few visual moments that I liked in Pickpocket, but it was just so subtle that one was kind of lost on me.
Right.
And so I thought this Diary of a Country Priest was much more in line with Balthazar, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. The whole... So this has been one of those TCM foreign imports. And so if you look on YouTube, Ben Mankiewicz will give his little introduction to it. And he described it as like this ultra minimalist film, which I didn't necessarily agree with. But this is also coming from a guy that's seen Saint and Tango this year. So I'm used to ultra slow, subtle, long takes and stuff. So maybe I'm kind of shaping my taste in film. So yeah, Pickpocket a little too subtle. I actually thought this was extremely dialogue heavy. He's pretty subtle in how he kind of weaves plot beats into to where whenever I kind of read more about the film after the fact, it became more clear of what they were actually talking about, which we'll get to. Yeah, man, these subtitles come at you fast and furious, and I'm kind of a slow subtitle reader. Did you guys ever have to pause and be like, what did they say?
I didn't have that. I mean, I will say that I watch a lot of movies with subtitles, as this comes with this job. But even beforehand, I feel like whatever the acclimation it is to doing subtitles, I'm pretty good. Though once in a while, there's certain languages that don't translate to English translation very well, and so
that might be part of it. Because I've been pretty down on a lot of French films, and maybe it is because their subtitles are more wordy or whatever. Like you watch a film like Parasite, and the subtitles basically disappear as you're getting into those performances, where it was every single word. I mean, and there's all this religious talk, but like philosophy and stuff, and maybe that's why I was trying to really get each word in. So,
right.
I don't know how to read, so I
What was it
never
about?
I don't know what any of this movie is about. But actually, as a fun little aside, I was watching some Paul Nashi movies last month, and I never talked about them on the podcast, but they're Italian movies and they have subtitles, but they also had a dub track. So just for the sake of it, I threw the dub track on too with the subtitles, and I did notice that there was actually
Yeah, I've seen that before.
a difference, and like some of them were minor, but some of them were so strange. It's like, why would you change it to this instead of that? So I have noticed that like kind of what Jarrett was like hinting at a little bit. Some of those languages, the translation with the subtitles it can get a little sticky.
It's a big thing with Blu-ray collectors too, because there's some debate with movies. What they'll have is sometimes you will have like say an English dub, and then you'll have subtitles for the movie, which you would assume is like a translation of what's the actual like foreign language, I guess, or the natural language. But sometimes they just use the subtitles for the English dub, which is not very good in the first place, and it can be kind of like it makes the completionist who wants the pure experience completely sullied, because it's like sometimes you get really bad writing sometimes with those dubs, because they're trying to just match what the words are that are being said, or rather than like the meaning.
One movie that actually the dubs really enhanced it was I was watching Police Story 1, and yeah, the dub on that is hilariously bad, and I almost thought it made the movie funnier because of how off and zanky it was.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to this glum priestly movie.
Glum movies.
In terms of the visual style, for this being like 1951 black and white, it looked a lot older than that to me. Am I crazy?
Now,
no, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, I
it
mean,
definitely needs a
restoration
like a Blu-ray upgrade on this thing.
I'd agree with that.
In terms of the style, I really loved the slow introspective fades. I think that was the key technique he was using, and it definitely kind of played into how the character was kind of reflecting on his situation there, stuck in this parish where essentially he's doing everything he can, but he's not handling the parishioners' more gossipy, more not as devoted aspect as what he wants. I guess I'll go ahead and get into it. So he has stomach cancer, and back-to-back weeks, the Criterion Collection.
Yep.
Between Ikaru and Diary of a Country Priest, he got the stomach cancer, and so he only eats bread and wine, which is clearly a metaphor for communion, the Eucharist. And so it's pretty cool that essentially all he is doing is consuming Christ in his life. Oh, I mean, if you want to think 100%. About it realistically, yeah, he's, he has a terrible, whatever is going on with his stomach, and he's taking in all this acid, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But yeah, in terms of it, looking at it, the fact that he's constantly taking in the blood and the body of Christ, I mean, that's pretty awesome metaphor.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know out there who else is listening, but as a good Catholic boy, some of the churches did the communion a little different. Some places would be wafers and wine. We had a couple churches up here that would give the little piece of bread soaked in wine, and they'd pick it up with a spoon and they'd flick it into your mouth. So when he was talking about bread soaked in wine, I was just like, I know what you're talking about, man. I was like, they used to flick that shit right down your throat,
just I grew up Lutheran, so yeah.
Well, so, almost the same. Everyone knows except for Jarrett, because he's a heathen sinner.
Well, I was just gonna say Lutheran. That's right up the Paul Schrader alley. I think that's how that guy was raised.
Nice. Schrader was it Calvinist?
Or Calvinist? Sorry, he's a Calvinist.
Yeah, I got into whenever I was researching about Last Temptation, he was talking about his Calvinism, and it's coming at religion from a much more ideological, intellectual point of view. So right. Yeah, no worries there. Bergman and another guy was a Lutheran. I don't think Tarkovsky. Bergman and somebody else. And yeah, I'm curious to hear more about your comparisons to Winter Light, because I haven't seen Bergman's religious crisis of faith movies yet. So I'm really curious to see how these relate.
It's plot-ish. So Okay, I mean, this is kind of getting into territory we're talking about First Reformed. So with the Diary of a Country Priest, it's the stomach cancer like through line, but then and the diary. Those are the kind of the two major things. But it's combined with from Winterlight, which is it's kind of a man who's kind of questioning his own faith, but he has a conversation with a parishioner who's played by Mox van Sydow, and he's like completely fallen into this rut of like he can't get over the fact that nuclear weapons could fall on us at any moment, and he obsesses about it. He's got a wife. His wife actually brings him in to talk to the priest, and he's not able to actually convince him otherwise because his faith is kind of like shaken anyway, and the guy kills himself. And then, so you kind of have these two kind of things conflate into the First Reformed, and then it turns into its own thing. Because obviously, instead of nuclear weapons being dropped on us, it's environmental calamity, and sort of like also the power of corporations or money in regards to the church and how they can influence it. So it has like another element to it that's contemporary, but like there's like those two major factors of like this is the story, this is how you tell priest stories, I guess, in this sort of like in the classic oeuvre. I mean, both movies are like within 20 films or whatever in the Criterion collection, so they're in the film canon. And so
and I was also hearing the comparison where they were saying that Schrader might have based Travis Bickle off of this guy a little bit, and
right.
I'm not exactly seeing that lineup.
I mean, that kind of it feels like a Bresson kind of thought process. I don't know specifically this because there is like there's the Travis Bickle narration, but beyond that, I don't know. It seems like it's a lot of influence. It's influenced by all these things for him.
And personally, I don't have any problem with the voiceover. I love those Nick Cage films where he's talking all about what he's doing. And
I like in Bringing Out the Dead or something like that. Like I love or like Goodfellas. I love I have no problem with voiceover narration. I just found that in Diary of a Country Priest, I felt it didn't add a lot because there's like literally a scene where he's like waiting in the room to meet the rich man, and he's like, and then he came to the door, and then he literally comes to the door. I'm like, why? Like, this would be so much better if you took that out. And so it's kind of curious.
Does it come with the territory of it being an adaptation from a book that's based all on diary entries, where it's read the entry, play out the scene, read the entries, play out the scene? That formula seems like it's almost essential in actually recreating that.
I know I've read some people mention in passing in some of the reviews how they felt that there was some good contrast. Like they would play like how something is written in the word, and then there's a juxtaposition to how it actually played out in the scene. But I was never convinced of that personally. But
yeah, I didn't really notice that. No. If anything, a lot of the go ahead, RJ.
Oh no, you finish your thought, and then I'll chime in.
I noticed in a few instances where they would talk about things really subtly, so we can go ahead and dive into he's being accused of being a drunkard, and then like they would kind of like softly mention that like in the dialogue, and then after the fact, whenever he was writing something, it would be a little bit more blatant, which I mean I kind of appreciated that because I kind of missed it the first time around. There's also this really interesting idea that I'm wrapping my mind around, where the fact that they keep hinting at the fact that I guess his family had a history of alcoholism. Like the doctor's like teasing him that his like I guess he like came from a drunk family. I guess that's like a genetic thing. Is that what they're getting at there?
Yeah, I saw that bit too. Kind of threw me. I'm like, are they saying something about like fetal alcohol syndrome, like or something like that? Like I don't know.
Yeah, like the idea of a crack baby where you'd be more susceptible to addiction, but I don't think so. I think fetal alcoholism has just to do with you become impaired. Unfortunately, those poor kids when that happens. I'm not really sure. I think it's more. I'm leaning more toward the genetic side, where if you have a family that's really into alcoholism, it passes down the line.
Alcoholism does have a genetic like component to it. It does. So that's like a proven thing that they've talked about. Whereas like fetal alcohol syndrome, that's just like the like acute exposure to alcohol in utero. So there's like,
and it causes deformities, right?
Well, it causes like a few different things. Like it can even like come out to later. It's just like certain like impairments in like brain development, which can lead to like learning impairments or like things like memory or social interactions and things like that. That's where it comes. That's where it gets like expressed in behavior is impairments to like brain and like structure development.
I mean, do you think that could have been the case for our priest? I mean, he's definitely a little social inept, but otherwise, I think he's a pretty sly guy.
I mean, I don't know. I did kind of think it as they're just. I think it's even less than any like because this would be before genetic like confirmation of certain things. I think they're just like it's probably like your dad was a drunk. You're gonna be a drunk too, like apple fallen from the tree type of situation, because it's just how people base their opinions on stuff.
A couple quotes from the I guess the lead parishioner, like whenever he gets like some consultant about his situation. I think he says something to the fact that the church doesn't care if you're loved, just that you're obeyed. So that was very poignant. And then he basically tells them to stop being so fussy and to take better care of yourself. And so yeah, the priest definitely has a hard time wrapping his mind in the fact that he's not more beloved and he's more of a nuisance by the fact that he's taking interest in these people.
Yeah.
Which probably leads into the scandal a little bit, because that is kind of between the scandal and then like the kids picking on him. That's most of the interactions that he has, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, he has his little his like debriefings with the higher up priest, then the community interactions, and then the class that he teaches,
and then the guy who looks after him as he exits the world.
Well, yeah, we all need a guy like that, no, Jared?
That's right.
Was there some homoerotic vibes going on with him?
There always is on this podcast.
Because he's saying like, oh, we could have been getting with women, but we as intellectuals or something. And I don't know, like in all like the listening and reading I've done, I haven't heard that mentioned, but that definitely stood out to me.
I think that's more of a man of the cloth thing, where it's just abstinence in general from everything, where it's just like, I think they're like, yeah, we could be just boning down with broads left and right, but it's like we're above boning in general. Nice. Is the intent.
They should get you to write those screenplays.
I'd love to write a screenplay for like the church, or just for anyone. If say Quentin Tarantino needs some help beefing up one of his,
get some pointers.
Yeah, I'll give him some tips.
I think my favorite part about this was the script. I thought it had a really, really strong, amazing script, especially whenever he is confronting the lady who has essentially lost faith because her little boy died, and he's kind of like helping console her and bring her back into like belief. And man, there's definitely a war. I was pretty captivated watching that kind of war of words go down. So I thought that was one of the stronger parts. And then the end kind of tails off. But we'll get there.
It's like a Kevin Smith movie with the war of words there.
War of words. Yeah, he definitely gets full of despair. Nobody wants him around. He's doing his best. Everybody just thinks he's a drunk.
I know what that feels like.
Communion. And what does he say at one point? God has left me. I'm sure of this. But I never really felt like it's a crisis of faith. It seemed like he was pretty steadfast in what he did.
I agree with that, where it doesn't totally seem like I don't think that he's lost his religion REM style. I think he's more just like, I don't want to say bored, but he's just like, I don't feel good and I don't really know how to describe it, so I'm just gonna like kick around, kick rocks, and like that kind of thing. He's like, do I question my beliefs? And he's like, well, no. So it's like he kind of pitter patters around it for a while.
Yeah, sad bastard. Was he a sad bastard, JD?
I don't know if I'd consider him a sad bastard.
Those criteria, they knock out a lot of things you think would fit.
He seems like moderately successful. I mean, he is a priest of some success. He's reached some level of success, and then you kind of see his like, hey, this line of work can really stink and not be such an easy ride, which I don't understand. Which yeah, again, I don't know enough about this world, and I don't know. It's not one that I'm really interested in. Yeah. So I think my favorite little shot in this movie is right after the doctor's funeral for his maybe suicides happened, and he's our protagonist. He's riding up on his bike to like kind of like the congregation or like whatever the funeral's getting out, and there's like this banner that's in the background across the church. I guess it's got the big D on it, and then they're having this conversation about like, oh well, do you think he did kill himself? And if he killed himself, well, what does that mean? And it's like, well, he just lost. That's tough. That's kind of his deal. And then just like in the background though, there's just like this whatever's going on. You can see that thing kind of getting the giant banner getting taken down, and it's just getting wrapped around. I was like really interested in what was going on in the background, because it seems like just be playing around this like it's just another day in this whole process of existence. And like to me, I'm like that. To me, is like that I really loved that small detail, because it's just a background thing that's included. But for the most part, I found that a lot of the movie is like very foregrounded, because the movie opens up with him arriving to the town, and then we get like the rich man with the woman he's carrying on with, and you don't know who they are initially, but first you think they're just like these like people that were like necking in the woods, and then they see a priest, and then they go, oh well, I guess we should stop doing that. And that's like kind of this idea that like this probably happens a lot with a priest. Like no one wants to be themselves around a priest, and you have to as a priest, you probably wind up getting used to this perspective of the world where everyone looks at you like you're like a cop. But you're like the spiritual cops.
There were some great wide shots in the beginning showing like the trees kind of like all around him, and he's in this big black cloak. I heard a lot of people mention how they kind of got a Seventh Seal vibe out of seeing him approach like that. It's definitely a very iconic wardrobe he has going on. I guess we should probably mention, what is it, the daughter, who she's real. So I guess the main plot of the movie is the fact that, the rich guy is having an affair and, cheating on the mom. And then the daughter is real distressed about this. And then there's an interesting encounter between the priest and the daughter. And he basically can see it on her face, that the fact that she wants to kill herself. And she makes him, she demands that she hand him over the suicide note or whatever. Pretty subtly done really well. I never really grasped why he took such an interest in her, because I mean, didn't he like confront her father and be like, man, she like looks really sad, and he's like, don't be ridiculous, she's fine. So maybe just kind of covering up his own indiscretions.
One thing I'm just noticing, looking over the actual character list, is like they don't have names really. Like there's like the priest, the count, the priest of Torsi, the countess. Like I mean, speaking of minimalism, it's just like it is like they even stripped down that like obviously characters do have names in the movie as well, but the protagonists, like your principal four characters, they're just priest. It's like that's it.
Yeah.
That's just a element of Catholicism, Jarrett. There is no individual. We are all one within Christ.
There you go.
Do you follow?
Nope.
No, you will. You'll get there eventually, bud.
You'll get me one of these days.
I'll get you there eventually.
So is it time to talk about powdered poison in a glass for fun?
Sure.
Just a little bit. You just drink a little bit. That's all you need.
Yeah. He's falling all over himself. He falls in the mud, and the little girl's like, yeah, they poisoned you. Yeah. Good on you. So.
Are you saying that you've never been poisoned by your community members? Because frequently I have a lot of allergic reactions to communal drinks that I've indulged in.
You just find all these little instances relatable there, RJ.
I mean, I'm living life over here, my man. Before this even with the social distancing, I hang out in my basement. I got 2 cats. I make a lot of I don't know. We do a lot of pretend. Like we have a pretend grocery store. We have a pretend like city hall, dispute parking tickets, things like that. It's not a lie if you believe it, Justin.
There you go. And then he heads out of town. He wants to get a better opinion. And so he hops a ride on that motorcycle and zoom off to town. And then that motorcycle guy's like, man, you're real awkward. you're pretty socially inept there, bud.
He is. He is a very
Just like Jarrett.
just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is all just too relatable for me.
Probably. I mean, yeah.
So I guess my question is, what do you guys think of this movie?
Jay Peterman, do you want to take it? I know your last name is not Peterman, but I just think of Seinfeld when I talk to you. So,
yeah, I enjoy the most of it. I think it's an excellent script. I love a lot of the visuals in terms of how it shows how introspective he is. I would definitely give this like around 4 stars. I think this is an excellent film. Although it didn't need to be 2 hours. I think this clearly is probably a 90-minute joint that they kind of stretched out towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it goes on a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it overall once I was able. Actually, it took me 2 sittings to get through it. I watched the first 45 minutes, and it was pretty late at night, and I just was not being able to follow along with the subtitles. And so the following day, I kind of picked it back up, and I was getting into those conversations. And yeah, I thought it was really good show. It's pretty inconclusive in terms of like being a religious film because I mean, it's mostly just about this guy, and it's just he's doing what he needs to do, but no one accepts him, and he just kind of has a sad bastard life, kind of down and out. I love that shot, as he's about to die, how they have the cross silhouette come up.
Right.
That was pretty good. Yeah, that's about all I got. I thought it was an excellent film. I liked it better than Pickpocket.
Yeah. So I think it's a good show. I think first and foremost, it is entirely too long.
Yes.
It's way too long. They could cut easy a half an hour out of this thing, and I think it would be like way more enjoyable. So I actually enjoyed watching this movie quite a bit, but like I got bogged down because I was like liking it. I was like, this thing's got to end soon. And then I like checked the time, and it's like an hour and 5 minutes. I was like, there's 50 minutes left.
Yeah.
I was like, God damn.
I feel like the point for me was like when he has the talk with like the senior priest or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, this movie's got to be like probably winding down in the next half hour. It's like, oh no, this is halfway. And you're like, what? But there's nothing else to do. Like you've done it all. And then it's just like, that's where I was just like kind of resentful, I think, and being like, okay, enough of you, movie. I've had enough of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that's like the major knock against it is it's just too long because there's a lot of stuff that drags. And this would be my comment. You've both talked about narration. Mm-hmm. I think the problem with the narration is that while it happens, the characters are just staring at each other in silence. And I found at certain segments, it becomes noticeable as an audience member because there's a part where it's like the narration is going on and the people just like stop acting so that because they were probably told it's like, okay, hold this for like 20 seconds because this is where the narration is going to come in. And there was a scene where it's like the priest is just kind of standing there just just for like what feels like an eternity. And like they do address it too, where like one of the scenes, the lady's talking and then his narration cuts in and like she's still talking. And then she's like, did you hear what I said? And he's like, no, I didn't hear any of that. So they do kind of like address it to a point where they're like, no, he's just like not hearing them. He's off in his own mind.
Right.
But I think sometimes it gets brought up and it's like noticeable. So that was the thing that I thought about it.
It was pretty clever. Like towards the end, the narration tails off a little bit as he becomes more sickly and able to write less, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And so I think there's a few things like that. I've mentioned a few times, I do like these priestly movies where it's like questions about what is good and bad. And I just like some of the quotes that they have in these movies. Like there's one quote where he's talking about a day's work undone by night. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's got nice, deep Catholic connotations in it. And I love it so much. Because I think it's a nice way to parallel people, Jarrett. People. There's another one he's talking about how the simplest tasks are by no means the easiest. And that's not Catholic. But I was like, hey, I like that. That's a nice little sentiment there. But there's all this talk of suffering.
Anecdote.
Yeah, an anecdote. All this talk of suffering God's Misery, Eternal Separation, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, lap that over me because I just eat it up. So I love all these like big ethereal like doomsday things, or it's just like, well, I love when he's talking to the older priest and the older priest's like, maybe God doesn't want you to be happy. And I was like, oh, you just want to knock over everything in your desk. You're like, oh, I love it. It's beautiful. So I really like those aspects of it. I do like a lot of the dialogue. I think it's too long, and I think that's like one of the major knocks against it. I also think the priest looks like Joey and Chandler mixed together from Friends. Joey and Chandler, both of them mixed together, which is weird. And then you guys were talking about how we have 2 cancer movies in a row. I just got a targeted ad on Reddit today for colon cancer checkup. So I don't know what's happening, but apparently the world's trying to steer us in a certain direction, Jarrett.
There's more than one C to worry about still.
Mm-hmm. Which one? The big C?
Well, COVID, cancer.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
It's not like COVID's taken over all the diseases and ways of dying. There's all the other ones still too. We gotta take care of ourselves, you know.
Go get a colonic.
So go get that colon checked.
Sure.
So how did you say this stacked up to those Bergman films?
I think the Bergman films are better, but I think that's just because Ingmar Bergman is an incredible pervert, and it shows in his films. And that's the style and grace that you want in your storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, I think he was a much more experienced filmmaker by the time he got around to that. I think this is one of Bresson's early works.
Yeah, it's right before he gets into the swing of things, I think. But it's like right on the cusp, and then it's all. I think it's uphill from there. For the most part. Then like you watch like his last movie, L'Argent, which I think is just money. And that movie is like very like 80s European. It doesn't even feel like a movie being made by this guy who's making these minimalist movies in the 50s and 60s. But it is completely stripped out everything. Like there's just scenes that you're like, that would be there normally, but no, there's like, it's just very elliptical. It's really interesting. Actually, it's very similar to like a Michael Haneke movie. Like Seventh Continent or something like that, or Benny's Videos. But yeah, okay. Cool.
But you would recommend Man Escaped?
Yes, I think that one should work.
I think that'll be my next one.
I think that one will work better for you. I think I mean I haven't seen anyone really not like that movie, so you got that. You can challenge me on that one. You can be the first and be like, Jarrett, this movie stinks.
I'll buy pickpocket on that, but nice.
So, want to hear about who hates this movie?
Yeah, baby.
Sure.
Okay, RJ, you ready?
Uh-huh.
Okay. First up, we've got Kragers with 1 star. I guess I have to play the role of Philistine here and admit that I did not enjoy this movie even a little bit. In my attempt to watch all 300 and something movies on Roger Ebert's Great Movies list, I have now had to endure 4 of director Bresson's films. I'm not going to attempt to argue that his films are anything but great, but they are definitely not to my taste. Please let this be the final Bresson movie in Ebert's list for me to watch.
First up in Krager's favorite films is 5 stars to Portrait of a Lady on Fire, much to the chagrin of Frank Santoro, I am sure. But they also, it's just all there. 5 stars to Arrival, Jarrett's favorite movie, Open Range for some reason. But like other religious thrillers like Ordette, he gave 5 stars. Passion of Joan of Arc, 5 stars. So, whoever this person is, they're all over the map, you guys. All over the map.
You know what, though? I think a good cinephile should be all over the map.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you got a good point there.
Got some like
Ordette.
some
Who made Ordette? That's another kind of religious filmmaker, right?
Dreyer.
I hadn't seen any of his stuff yet.
Watch Passion of the Joan of Arc. That's
yeah, I have seen that one. Okay.
Yeah, that's early of his though. But then there's his later stuff. Yeah, what would I'm trying to think which one was the one to go with of that. Or definitely not Gertrude.
Gertrude. It's a good show. Good show, Jared.
Next up, JP.
JP.
Ooh. 1 star. just sounds like a bunch of pious bitching to me. Admittedly, that's probably what you would find in a priest's diary, but the film falls flat on its face when it inexplicably backs up the main character, something noticeably avoided in the rather similar Pickpocket. Superfluous shots, painful music choices, an unfilmably miraculous conversion scene, and an ending the film in no way earns killed this one unequivocally for me. Very surprising, because for me, Bresson is the most ambiguous of directors. Chalk this one up to his not fully developed style, I guess. Now, at least I get why people assign trite Christian messages to his other films. This approach still seems unnecessary, though, seeing as his style later became so essential that it shed inherent meaning entirely, as opposed to this in La Dame de Bon, which strike me as being simply meaningless. Bresson certainly doesn't have a sunny worldview, but that is the only thing you can say for sure about most of his films. That's the interesting thing about his style. It's so ambiguous that even his own opinions don't count. Bresson is most like a painter in this respect. Sure, afterwards you can do research about the religion and biography, but the first thing you can see is paint on a wall that means whatever you bring to it.
I find it interesting that
opinions there.
Yeah. I find it weird that they say the trite Christian, whatever the word was they used there. I was like,
I think in this case they'd be overtones.
Yeah,
it's what it's about.
This this JP person.
Oh, so what they meant was, okay, to make that clear, I guess it's like a lot of people, because of this movie, they start taking the same. The guy thinks that they start applying this Christian message to his other movies because of this, and in those contexts, it's trite. I don't think he's saying this one is trite. He's saying that like sometimes people make some stretches, and they're like, well, all his movies have this because of this movie, and I think he means those ones are trite. To defend this person, I do not know. I think that's what he meant to say. I think that's a clear way of saying it. Yeah,
I gotcha. That makes more sense. This person, whoever they are, has 1,700 5-star films and 1,200 1-star films.
Oh. Their
email is jpvonmayer, Mayer, @gmail.com. If anyone would like to contact them, it's just made there available for us. So there you go. They own it. I don't even know how to wade through this stuff, you guys. There's 2,000 5-stars, 2,000 1-stars. They give Vanilla Sky 1-star. That's not right. Seventh Seal 1-star. The Magician 1-star. Don't like Bergman apparently. Dead Poets Society 1-star. I don't know. Lots of Nightmare on Elm Street's 1-star. I think we all agree those aren't 1-star films, right, Jared? Hereditary 1-star. Maybe they're onto something.
That's not right.
I don't know.
It's definitely not a 1-star movie.
No, but yeah, I don't know. I know some people talk about it's like not giving a rating at all, where you either don't like it or like it, 5-star or 1-star. But I don't know, Jared.
And finally, just one brief one, Bumpkin.
Ooh,
1.5 star. Sadly tastes like stale bread. They only have 5 words, and they still spelt one of them wrong.
I noticed that. That was nice. They just watched this a week ago.
Yep.
This Diary of a Country Priest. They also just gave Truman Show a 0.5 star. Favorite films include Midsummer and Ichi the Killer, the corpse favorite.
Starting to see that one.
5 stars to Raw, 5 stars to Salo. The only other 2 5-star films are Your Name, the Anime, and The Terminator.
Huh.
0.5-star films. What is this? Truman Show, Lost in Translation, Rosemary's Baby, Gone Girl, La La Land, and then Cats. What are we doing here, guys? what are we doing? I don't know.
Most people hate watching Cats, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think so.
It's like, yeah.
I need to dip into that pool at some point.
Silly.
One of these days. Well, any last thoughts on this priest from the country?
Catholicism. Woo!
Lutheran.
Woo! Solidarity, Jared.
Oh, man. Nailing those things to some door somewhere, right? That's the
Just in
Lutheran
time
thing.
for Easter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Diet of the worm. I don't know.
Ooh, baby.
After the break, I don't know. I'll die. I'll die this time, RJ. I don't want to kill our guest host either. So I'll die. I will
big
die.
The
scene are
warm
you
bedside of your intellectual friend.
Yes, of RJ. That's right. And call it a day.
Intellectual friend.
Social distancing.
Yeah.
I've never been called such kind things before.
Nope. It's a special day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.